Hey guys, I'm here to talk with you a little bit more about dividing fractions. And so this is just dividing fractions by fractions. In another video, I talked specifically about dividing fractions by whole numbers and dividing whole numbers by fractions. But this one is specifically about dividing fractions by fractions. So, fractions can also be divided by other fractions. We already know this. And the same process applies to dividing fractions by fractions. So I'm going to put the rules up on the screen just a second, and we're going to walk through some examples. So when you're dividing fractions, you've got to know the rules. First rule is that if you have a mixed number, you must always change it to an improper fraction first. If you don't remember what that looks like, you have to remember what an improper or what a mixed number is. A mixed number is basically where you have a whole number in front of a fraction. So it's going to look something like this, like 2 and 1/3. And in order to change it from a mixed number to an improper fraction, we have to do something I like to call the heart method, or some people call it the half circle. It's really up to you what you want to call it. So basically what you do is you multiply your denominator by your whole number. 3 times 2, which we know is 6, and then I add my numerator, which is plus 1, so that's 7, over the number 3. So when I change this number, this mixed number, to an improper fraction, I get the number 7 over 3 as my new number. And so the reason why it's improper is because our numerator is bigger than our denominator. And so if you are taking notes at home or want to relearn this, all you need to know is that to change each mixed number to an improper fraction, you do what I call the heart method. And so if you want to write that down, it'll help you remember it, then go ahead and do that. The second rule is that you must rewrite your first fraction. I'll go over this step by step with examples in just a moment, so just bear with me. The next one is to change your division sign to multiplication. The next step is to find the reciprocal of the second fraction to multiply and then simplify if needed. So let's run through this with an example. Okay, but before we dive too deeply into this, I want to review really fast the word reciprocal. So we learned in my other video that whenever you have the reciprocal of something, it's the opposite. It's like whenever you multiply the opposite by its, or a fraction by its opposite to get the number 1. So for example, we have the number 16 over 21 here. So if I take 16 over 21 and I multiply it by its reciprocal, which is its opposite, so 21 over 16, and I multiply straight across, and we would multiply this straight across, and we would get 16 times 21 is 336. And we know 21 times 16 is also 336. So anytime we get a number over itself, it actually is going to equal 1, right? So when I ask for the reciprocal, I'm looking for the opposite number of 16 over 21, which would be this. And so, all that being said, I'm not asking you every single time to do that. I'm just showing why when you ask for the reciprocal, it's supposed to equal 1, okay? So, in this next problem, I want you guys to pause the video and to try to do these next 3 problems by yourself and hit play on the video when you're ready to go over your answers to see if you could get the reciprocal of 3 over 1, 1 over 5, and 1 and 8/11ths. Okay, let's go over those answers. So for the first one, we have 3 over 1. The reciprocal of 3 over 1 was, you probably guessed it, 1 over 3. So if you got that right, give yourself a big smiley face, just like that. The next one, we have 1 over 5. So the reciprocal of that is going to be 5 over 1. And yes, you have to put 5 over 1 because sometimes we can get a little bit forgetful and forget that every whole number over 1 is just itself. But when we're working with reciprocal, some people like to multiply the top and the bottom by that number, which is not true. You have to multiply 5 times 1 and 5 times 1, okay? So if you got 5 over 1, give yourself another big fat smiley face, just like that. All right, and this last one, if you sat here and scratched your head and got super confused and put something like 1 and 11 over 8, I'm super sorry, but that is not right. I'm going to teach you really fast how to do that in case you get a little bit confused. So when you have a mixed number, just like with all things fractions, whenever we're dividing or multiplying, you've got to turn that mixed number into an improper fraction. Same thing is true even when working with reciprocal. So we have 11 times 1, which we know is 11, plus 8 is going to give us 19 over our denominator 11. So our number here gets changed to 19 over 11. But is this the reciprocal? The answer is no, because this is the fraction, or sorry, our mixed number turned into an improper fraction. So now when it asks for the reciprocal of this fraction, you've got to go in and you've got to make it into your reciprocal. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to choose the red pen. And we know that the reciprocal of 19 over 11 is 11 over 19. And that would be your reciprocal. So if you got that first try, give yourself a big fat smiley face because you're doing awesome. Go ahead and we're going to go ahead and practice these actually dividing fractions by fractions. Okay, so our first example problem is 2 over 7 divided by 1 over 2. So let's go ahead and review our rules. The rules say up here that when you're dividing fractions, you have to change each mixed number into an improper fraction. Well, in this particular problem, there are no mixed numbers, so we can go ahead and skip step 1. Step 2 says rewrite the first fraction. So that's what I'm going to do over here. This is my first fraction here. So I'm going to do my 2 over 7. This is also known as our keep or K part of the fraction or part of the problem where we keep that first number or rewrite it. Okay? The second step is we have to change this division sign into multiplication sign. So I will then label that next step our change or our C, and then go ahead and rewrite your problem below with that multiplication sign. And then our last part is to find the reciprocal of the second fraction. Well, this would be our second fraction, and we know that reciprocal means when you flip a number upside down. So we're going to go ahead and label this our F, or our flip part of the problem, where we turn 1/2 into 2 over 1. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down here. So we have 2 over 7 times 2 over 1. And what we do is we just multiply straight across. That's what step 5 says to do. So we have 2 times 2, which gives us 4. 7 times 1, which gives us 7. And since we cannot simplify, because there's nothing divisible, so there's nothing that 4 and 7 have in common to divide by. So our answer here is just 4 over 7. So yay, that should have been an easy one for you guys. We're going to go ahead and try a different problem. So here's a practice problem for you. If you're practicing this at home, go ahead and hit pause on the video. Try to divide 3/4 by 2/3, and then hit play when you're ready to go over your answer. Okay, let's go over that answer. So you probably would have noticed that I left all the steps for you on this slide. That way you're able to follow along and try and make sure you're following all the steps correctly. So if you did it right, let's go ahead and check. It says to change each mixed number to an improper fraction. There's no mixed numbers, so we can skip that one. Rewrite the first fraction. So we would rewrite 3 over 4 right here, our keep. Then it says to change that division to a multiplication sign and to flip our second number. So we should have our reciprocal of 2/3 would be 3 over 2. Whoops. And we multiply straight across. So I have 3 times 3, which gives me 9. And then I have 4 times 2, which gives me 8. Now our last step is to simplify. Because 9 over 8 is an improper fraction, we actually have to divide. So we'll put 8 on the outside, 9 on the inside. 8 goes into 9 one time. And when we drop that down, we actually have a remainder of 1. So our new fraction, because this top number becomes our whole number, this remainder number becomes our numerator, and this divisor becomes our denominator, we actually have 1 1/8 as our answer for this equation. So if you got that, good job. If you didn't, just make sure that you're simplifying your improper fractions, otherwise you'll get that question wrong on your quiz. Okay, now we finally have a problem that I want us to try that actually does contain a mixed number. So, as we know, our first step for dividing fractions is to change each mixed number to an improper fraction. And so we know the only way to do this is by doing our heart method or by doing the half circle, whichever one you prefer. So we have to start by doing that. So we have 8 times 1, which gives us 8, plus 5, which gives us 13, over the denominator, which is 8. So I'm going to rewrite that first number like step 2 tells me. So I'm going to write 13 over 8. And then the second step says to change that division to multiplication sign, which I'll do right here. And then find the reciprocal or flip that second number so that I have 4 over 1. So now we multiply straight across. When we multiply straight across, we have 13 times 4, which is going to give us 52. And then 8 times 1, which is going to give us 8. And since this is an improper fraction, we're not done here. So what we have to do is divide. We know that 8 can go into 52. 8 goes into 8 goes into 52 6 times. And we know that 8 times 6 is 48. And when we subtract, we have 52 minus 48, which is 4. And so now we've got to rewrite this fraction. We have 6 on the top, which is going to be my whole number. We have 4 on the numerator, because it's our remainder, and 8 on the bottom, because it's our denominator. But what do we notice about these numbers? Well, we know that 4 and 8 both can be simplified a little bit further. So I'm going to divide the top and the bottom both by 4. When I divide 4 from 4, I get 1. And when I divide 8 by 4, I get 2. So my answer, guys, we can't forget this whole number over here. So my answer for this problem is actually going to be 6 1/2. And so if you got that, or if you can follow that, awesome. I'm going to leave you to try this last one by yourself. Go ahead and hit pause on the video as soon as I post the next problem. Just like magic, here it is. So 2 5/6 divided by 2/3. Go ahead and hit pause and then hit play when you're ready to get over that answer. Okay, let's go over that answer. So our first step in dividing fractions is you must change each mixed number to an improper fraction. So that's exactly what we did. We did 6 times 2, which is 12, plus 5, which is 17, over our denominator 6. So our new number for the first number here is 17 over 6. Then we have to remember to rewrite that first fraction, which we did. Change the division to multiplication, which we did. And then, of course, we find the reciprocal of the second fraction, which we know is 3 over 2. When we multiply 17 by 3 correctly, we get 51. And then 6 times 2, which will give us 12. Since this is an improper fraction, we have to then simplify and make it into a proper fraction. So I put 12 on the outside, 51 on the inside, and then I divide in. I know 12 can go into 51 4 times because 12 times 4 is 48. So when I subtract 48 from 51, I get the remainder of 3. And since I have all these numbers in place, that top number becomes my whole number. My remainder becomes my numerator, and the divisor becomes my denominator. And since I can simplify that down by 3, my new answer is going to be 4 1/4. So if that makes sense to you, I'm super happy. Hopefully this video helps you. Again, if you ever have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help you. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Bye!